Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, giving you the edge you need to get into the colleges of your dreams, with your host, Steve Schwartz. That's me.
Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox. Today we're talking with Lauren Gaggioli. Thanks so much for joining us today, Lauren. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for being on the show. Now, you've got an exciting background. You went to NYU, got a BFA in theater, and you got back into test prep. You tutored your SAT and ACT throughout Southern California. You founded an online test prep company called Higher Scores Test Prep. And now you host your own podcast on college admissions, the College Checklist Podcast. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So, that's really the Reader's Digest version. I was always academic in high school. I was very, very focused on my studies. I was an AP scholar and a full IB diploma recipient. So if people are familiar with the International Baccalaureate program, my husband and I actually went through that together. I really enjoyed the academic rigor. And when I went to college, I was one of those students who was the perfect fit for college, but I could have used a little more time to figure out my direction. So when I didn't know what to pick to study, I went, I like to do a lot of different things and I love acting. Why don't I just become an actress and then I can do all the different things that could be my job, is to be many different professions. Very naive looking back on it. But, after graduation from NYU with my BFA in theater, I realized that the lifestyle of an actor was not what I wanted. And they just weren't my people. My people are more academic. So I started tutoring the SAT and the ACT with one of the larger test prep companies. And I was like, wow, I missed this. And, hindsight being what it is, my dad in high school used to call me the number 2 pencil nerd because I don't like waking up in the morning. I am not a morning person, but if there is a test to be taken and there are bubbles to be filled, I am out of bed bright and early and ready to rock. So I sort of came back to those, what I call my nerdy roots, and started teaching some kids how to master these tests, and I found a passion for it. I don't think I ever realized how many students don't understand the logic behind the test, and I think that is a skill that they need to master, and the tests afford quite a few opportunities for our students these days. So I think it's an important skill to have in their back pocket, and it can help them beyond the tests themselves as well. So that's what I do now, 100%, and I love it.
Awesome. What would you say was the pivotal moment that led you to make that switch? I mean, you definitely have that passion for standardized tests. Not a lot of students do, and you clearly have a passion for helping them discover that. But was there some sort of pivotal moment that led you to make that jump?
I think from a career standpoint, absolutely. I got the note after an audition once that I was the best actress they had seen, and yet they would not give me the role. I was too short. And I went, I don't have much self-determination here. And I'm very entrepreneurial in spirit. And that I think is one of the things that would have helped me in an acting career. But the sense that I didn't get to chart my own journey from a career standpoint really bothered me. So that was the moment that I said, all right, I'm going to go over and go full tilt on what I've already been doing and loving. My relationships with my kids, that is what just lights me up, because learning how they learn is so fascinating. And even though I have an online course, I have ways, I realize that I have kind of developed the skill within the tutoring arena that really translates online very well. And I'm able to tap into a student's strengths and weaknesses very quickly.
Wow, that's great. One of the things we love to hear on College Admissions Toolbox are stories. I know you've worked with a lot of students, both online and in person in California. Could you take us to the moment in time of the worst moment you've seen a student experience? And then we'll kind of delve into the lessons learned.
Sure, absolutely. And You gave me this question ahead of time, and I have to be honest. Even though I have training as an actress, I am not a very good storyteller, so I apologize in advance.
I've listened to your podcast. You're a great storyteller.
Oh, thank you. So I think the student that comes to mind is a student who I worked with for nearly 2 years. And I'm not talking, worked with them a little bit and then left and then came back to help them brush up and they were off and running. I'm very much let's prepare quickly. Let's get in, let's get you ready and get you out there, get your score so you can be done with this thing. Because though I love it and I like to live here, I don't want my students to have to live here. So, and here being in the testing world. So I had a student who, he came in with some very low scores. So it was very, very clear that testing was not his forte. At the same time, he was also dealing with some very serious medical issues. And so what happened was, and this was when I was working with one of the larger companies, and I didn't feel empowered to put my foot down. I felt like I was working for someone else. It was just my job to show up and do the work that I was contracted for. But what I saw with this young man is that we worked really, really hard for the first 2 months, and we got his scores up. They weren't competitive from the grand scheme of things view, but for him, he had made some serious strides, and I thought that was worth celebrating. However, his mother continued to bounce him between the SAT and the ACT. We were ping-ponging back and forth. I mean, we're talking over 2 years. And it got to the point where we reached the law of diminishing returns, where we were inputting so much time and he was dealing with so much on a personal level that I felt that I wasn't an advocate for him and for his sanity. I mean, he handled it like a champ. If I had ever thought that he was emotionally not prepared to do it, then I think I would have said something. That said, even though he didn't complain, even though he showed up and he did his darndest every single time, I wish that I had put an end to it, or at least put a stop to it for a year. Let him go through what he was going through and deal with it. Because I think the beauty of the situation that he had was that they got started very early. And so that afforded some opportunities to take a foot off the gas on the testing side and say, get healthy, get well. And ultimately, the story ends well. He needed like 10 more points on an SAT to get another $1,000 in scholarship money. He did it. But from the watching the whole journey, I think we could have done it with less prep. And it taught me to be an advocate for my students, especially when it was my own company and I felt a little more ownership of the process. I feel now much more empowered to step in and have a conversation. Ultimately, it's a family's decision. I'm never going to close that down at all. That's not my place. But to offer my recommendation from a standpoint of, I've been doing this for almost 10 years and I know I can read a student well, and I know what they need both on the testing and academic side, but also on the emotional side. They're not mentally there. They're not going to get those great improvements. So say that's my sad story. I wish it had gone differently, but ultimately has a happy ending. So that's all good there.
No, that's great. I mean, it all worked out for the student in the end, but definitely some valuable insights there. I mean, if you don't have the other aspects of your life put together and you're not in a great place, medically, or you're not getting enough sleep, or you're just, spreading yourself too thin, maybe this isn't the time to focus on a particular aspect of the application like test prep. Maybe you're better off waiting until you can set aside that time, or even ideally, in my opinion, and tell me what you think, Lauren, the idea of starting the process earlier, getting the test prep out of the way, so that then come fall of senior year, you can really focus on the college essay, the letters of recommendation, getting all of those factors.
Oh man, we are so aligned on that for sure. You know, it's one of those things that is culturally what we do in this country. We say, hey, juniors, don't worry about the tests until the spring of your junior year. Well, if you're that go-getter student who also has AP tests, who also has IB tests, who is in a spring sport or activity, I was always in the spring musical, why on earth would we wait until then to do this big stressful thing? Your academics, they are what determine when you should be taking the test, primarily math. You enter high school, with the exception of perhaps some vocabulary building, you enter high school with the verbal skills you need to do these tests. So by the time you're in Algebra 2 is the thing that sort of flips the switch on and we start having that conversation. Ideally, I would like students in freshman year to look at their entire academic journey, figure out when they're going to be taking their, requisite math classes. So for instance, Algebra 2, which with Common Core I know is a little tricky. I would say maybe Math 2, I think is what they're calling it now. Yeah. That level is about when we need to at least start taking a practice test, a true practice test, not in the real testing room. Take a practice test, see where you land, do it at your kitchen table. There's free resources on my site and I'll send you links for your audience for sure. Let's do that early so we can have, like I said, with this student who we were pushing really hard. If you have the time, you have the ability to take your foot off the gas at times and really rest and deal and take care of you. So yes, I think, end of sophomore year is a great time for those super powered students, the ones who are in that level math. Early junior year is also really, really good, but let's get it done sooner rather than later.
No, definitely. No matter what, and no matter when you're taking it, whether you're listening as a superpowered sophomore or it's already senior year, make sure that while you're studying, you set aside the time and get the other aspects of your life all put together. I remember I did sports in high school, and I actually took some time off from cross country fall semester senior year just to get all my application stuff together, because that was my priority. And going to meets and going to races, I couldn't spread myself too thin. It wouldn't have worked for me.
Absolutely. And props to you for being that mature at that age to look at it all and go, I'm going to choose.
Well, honestly, I think my parents forced me. But,
oh, okay. You could have taken credit for that and run.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I didn't know too much back then, but I've definitely learned a lot since then working with students. But definitely setting aside that time, scheduling, so key. Thanks for sharing that, Lauren. I want to shift gears now, moving in a more positive direction and see, out of the students you've worked with, are there any light bulb moments you've seen in student experience that kind of led them on the path to that success?
I think it's an iterative process. I don't think test prep is I don't get it, now I get it kind of thing. You really have to keep working at it, and you have to keep hope that you can see more the next time you prepare, the next time you do a practice section. It's about that progression. I will say, especially with the current SAT reading, and I think this may still apply on the new reading, we'll see, but the current SAT reading, the SAT, the 2400 SAT, that exam, the reading, when an AP student is really struggling to improve their score, I have to encourage them to take a step back and think about it more simply. They are so good at justifying answer choices that they justify 3 answer choices and they can't see the one thing that makes that one wrong or the other one wrong. So I've definitely had students who I'll be sitting across the table from them, and in that section in particular, we'll have been working on it for a month. And you'll see in their eyes where they go, oh, that's why that one's wrong. And that's when I know that they can make that 50, 100 point jump. And that's, again, for that student who's coming from the very, very analytical side of things, the AP level rigor with reading, who has that understanding of a text that's so deep that we almost have to bring them back to the surface and be like, no, just deal with what's here. Don't go off on your theories that you can create, which is beautiful and great inside the classroom. This is a different skill.
Sure.
So that light bulb is fun to see, but it's not just I don't get it, I do get it. It's I don't get it, I'm getting it a little more, I'm getting a little more, and then there's a switch that tends to happen there.
Well, that's great. I mean, it sounds like it's really about kind of seeing things from the test maker's perspective.
Yes, it's the matrix. You gotta see through it. Exactly. No, that's really important, not to kind of just argue with the test, but come to understand it on a deeper level. That is a really great point. And you see some students, they sit on their scores because they are stubborn. They say it should be this way. And what I always say, I mean, look, we're in their ballpark. We have to play by their rules. Sure. You wouldn't go play football at a baseball field. So,
Definitely.
We have to be, and I encourage an adversarial viewpoint. I will loudly and proudly say that I'm not a huge fan of the test makers. I love the tests, but that sort of, we're going into battle. We're doing battle together. I help my students, arm them with the knowledge. That's what I love, and when you see them start to see it in that kind of gamification way, it's not true gamification, but when we start to see it in that light, it becomes more fun. It becomes more of all right, I'm going to get in there and get this and get out.
For sure. That sounds very Hunger Games-esque.
Very, very much so. Call me
great.
Katniss.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. I want to shift gears now, Lauren, and move into my favorite part of the interview, which is the lightning round.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to ask you some rapid-fire questions. You give me some rapid-fire responses. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great. What's your number one piece of advice for test prep and college admissions?
Start where you are. There are a lot of we should do this, but if you're beyond the date that advice applies to, like I said, you should start testing earlier in your junior year. If you're, at the end of your beginning of your senior year, start there. We can't call back the touchdown. We can't change the past, but we can move forward in the best way that fits where you are now.
Definitely. Really important. Start where you are. Could you share with us one habit that you believe contributes to success?
Consistency. Show up every time. And if you're not going to be fully invested, don't come.
Great. Yes.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah. What's one online resource that you absolutely love?
Can I do a little shameless self-promotion?
Sure, go for it.
I have the free test prep starter pack. It includes 6 fantastic resources that I've created, everything from 5-minute videos to 45-minute videos, PDF downloads. Come gain access to that. It also includes 15 free test prep tools. And so it's a great thing to come over and get your hands on. So you can come and get that on my site. Awesome.
That sounds super valuable. We'll link to it in the show notes.
Sounds great.
What's one book that you believe no college applicant should be without?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's a little motivational story, and I think there's a lot of information out there, but if your heart's not in it, and if you're not paying attention to what you truly want, then there's no point in knowing the steps. So start with you and read something that fills you up, and that's a book that fills me up.
That's a great recommendation, Lauren. Thank you for that. What are you up to these days? I know we're getting into the summer. What's coming your way this fall?
Oh, boy. Well, we're recording this in June of 2015, and the tests are changing in this next year. So the ACT is getting a new essay. The SAT is getting a major overhaul. So right now, my big thing is helping students understand what they should be doing in this year of change. So the class of 2017, the rising juniors, they're between a rock and a hard place. They have 2 very, very hard tests. Well, technically 3. And they have to decide what they're going to take. And my goal is to help them prepare less and keep stress levels low. So, this year, students could conceivably take 3 different exams. And I don't want that for any student. You don't need to take 3. So if we plan well, then we can keep all of the stress around these exams to a minimum. So that's really my mission this year. I do have a program that I'm launching to help students who want to become national merit scholars, where if they take my ACT exam prep course for the September ACT, then I will be offering free webinars to my students between the September ACT test date and the October PSAT test date to help them transition the strategies they learned in the ACT course to address the new PSAT. And so that's really my mission right now, is to help those students and to also help those students who aren't national merit to figure out their path, whatever that is. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And I'm really enjoying getting to know some of these rising juniors, getting to know their families. They're calling me, and I'm so grateful for that, because I just want to reduce stress around this. Whether you work with me or not, I put good information out there about some things that you need to know to prepare well.
Wow. That is great. It sounds like you're really helping students figure out and navigate all these different exams and the changes that are coming up. Since we're really into podcasts here, tell us a little bit about the college checklist.
Yes. So I started the college checklist in March of 2014. We just recorded episode 55. So we are, thank you. Thank you. It's been an interesting journey, and I think it's somewhat similar to yours in that I interview experts in the field of college admissions. We also talk a little bit about career success and college success. So I like to take a unique view. So I have fellow entrepreneurs on to talk about their journey. We talk about social media, things like that. So it's wide in breadth, and I try to be very creative with how we approach it. But I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and I get great feedback. So sounds like we're on the right track from the listeners, and I hope that some of your listeners will add ours to their queue as well, because it's weekly and it's great information.
No, absolutely. I highly recommend everyone check out the college checklist. I'm a big fan of it myself. It was inspirational for me in starting this podcast.
Thank you.
So everyone should check it out and subscribe. So where can folks find you online, Lauren?
So the best way to get in touch is to come over to higherscorestestprep.com, and the podcast lives there, as do all of my resources, lots of blog posts, things like that can help support you, and also my courses, of course. So if you're looking for test prep and you think online might be a right fit, always happy to have a conversation with you. I do free 30-minute consultations. So if you're confused about the testing timeline, come on over, go to higherscorestestprep.com/help, and I'll be able to help you figure out what it is you need to do, and based on where you are in this journey.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren. Take care.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to College Admissions Toolbox. Head over to www.collegeadmissionstoolbox.com to get more free tools and resources that will help you get into the colleges of your dreams. I started listening to podcasts and audiobooks because I felt like I didn't have enough time to sit down and read everything on my list. Since then, I've managed to quote-unquote read dozens of books just by listening to them while I'm doing other stuff. One audiobook I absolutely love is The Gatekeepers. It's by a reporter who followed an admission officer at Wesleyan for almost a full year. In The Gatekeepers, he shares everything he learned on the inside. Just go to collegeadmissionstoolbox.com/audiobook, and you'll be able to choose any free audiobook you'd like.